You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you along for the ride. Got a busy show set for the next 20 or so minutes. LSU football. Harold Perkins, his role confirmed. Not surprising, but now we know for sure what he will be doing for the Tigers in 2025. LSU men's hoops, their largest margin of victory in an SEC game, gets win number 2 in a row, win number 3 on the season in conference play, and pretty impressive performance. We'll talk a little bit about that. LSU baseball, they run Rule Southern on Tuesday afternoon. Now head down to the Bayou, face the Nicholls Colonels in frigid temperatures on Wednesday night. We've got it all covered for you here on LSU Daily. Be sure to subscribe, share, like, follow me on social media, Twitter X at Musso Matthew. You can find me on Instagram at Matthew Musso1, and of course on Facebook, I'm there as well at Matt Musso. All of that is greatly, greatly appreciated. So, let's not delay. Let's go ahead and dive right in. LSU football and Harold Perkins is where we will start. It's getting close, y'all. The Tigers open spring camp March 8th. I mean, you're looking at 3 weeks or so before LSU football is back on the practice field and gearing up for what we all expect to be a very impressive run in 2025. And one key figure in that run is going to be Harold Perkins. You've known that since Perkins officially announced that he would be returning after the ACL injury cost him the majority of the 2024 season. He slipped down draft boards a little bit because of that. And ultimately, you reap the benefit because you get your best defensive playmaker back. And I know when that decision was made, it might have been met with a little bit of mixed reviews, which is crazy. But it's also understandable because finding the role for Harold Perkins has been tough over the course of his first 31 games at LSU. We all remember the freshman year, right? We don't have to rehash all of it, but 7.5 sacks in 14 games. He was awesome. Took over that Arkansas game. Towards the end of that year, though, you did see teams start to scheme him out of the defense to limit the production. Okay, so you go into the next season, and you're looking to find the right fit, the right role for him. And while it felt like he was non-existent, his 2023 was actually very impressive as well. He had more tackles, just 2 less sacks, was all over the field in pass coverage. You saw the role really expand, and you saw him play in many different areas. Less kind of just rushing off the edge, more in coverage, things of that nature. Then Blake Baker gets to LSU, and it's like he's going to be the unlock. And they once again, for the second year in a row, try Perkins inside because that's what he wanted to do. It didn't work. And going into that UCLA game, they moved him out to star. And, of course, that's ultimately the game that he tore his ACL. And you didn't even get a full game sample size of him at that position. And when he announced his return, we sat here, we reacted, we said, star's where he's going to play in 2025. That's what makes the most sense. That's where all signs are pointing. And Blake Baker, over the weekend, sat down one-on-one interview with Julie Boudouin over at On3 Sports, the Bengal Tiger, and got it on the record confirmed. Blake Baker said Harold Perkins will play the star position in 2025. So again, it's what we widely assumed. It's what we had kind of been talking about. It's not surprising, but it's great to have it on the record confirmed because now you go into spring knowing where your best playmaker will be, and it's a position that I think really, really fits him well. And why? Because you have a guy with a very unique and elite skill set that you've seen on display at LSU in 2 years and some change, where you've seen this guy be able to rush off the edge in elite capacity. You've also seen his ability to cover and just wreak havoc everywhere else. I mean, this star position should get the most out of Perkins' athletic ability, and in turn his playmaking ability. The way I look at it is it should combine what he excelled at in each of his first 2 years at LSU. Like, there are opportunities for him to rush from that position. You could also move him closer to the line or on the edge in pass rush downs if you really wanted to do that as well. You've got some pretty good edge rushers on this team for 2025 too. But Perkins can absolutely rush from the star, and we saw in his second season how good he is in coverage, where he ends up with 5 PBUs his second year, an interception, and 6 passes defensed. That interception was in the Missouri game, and it completely turned the tide of that game. I mean, LSU was not going to win that game before Harold Perkins intercepted the ball and stole the momentum. So that's definitely a spot that he's very good at. With Starr, you combine both of those skill sets that you've seen on display. And plus, you know the guy can run. You know the speed, sideline to sideline, all of those things. I think it fits him to a T. Just look a year ago at the star position. Admittedly, Major Burns' career at LSU was up and down. But a season ago, specifically early in the season, you saw Blake Baker really be able to do some things with him at star. The South Carolina game in particular stands out. But just looking at Burns, his numbers a year ago, 47 stops, 4.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. He forced a fumble, had 2 pass breakups, and 2 passes defensed. I get it. That's a lot of numbers. But that's up there across the board. Like across the board, one of his, if not best seasons. It was a career high in sacks. It was a career high in tackles for loss. It was like one short of his career high in PBU. Now, and it was his second best season tackling. Now look at Harold Perkins. That athlete in that spot in Blake Baker's defense. Yeah. Because, I mean, if you just look at Perkins' career stats, you're looking at 2 seasons of 70-plus tackles with him moving all around, 13 sacks already, 7 forced fumbles, 7 PBUs, 9 passes defensed. And again, this is not a shot at Major Burns, but in 4 years, and again, he played safety for a good bit of that, 9 PBUs. Harold Perkins has 7. Like, the athletic ability between the two, it's not comparable. It's not comparable. So I'm fired up to see this in 2025. We'll get our first look at it here in about 3 weeks when LSU hits the field for spring camp on March the 8th. Harold Perkins, officially your star for 2025 per defensive coordinator Blake Baker. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. We'll talk some LSU basketball. The Tigers get the win a night ago over South Carolina on Tuesday evening at the PMAC. 81-67, your final score. I mean, Cam Carter, another really good night, led the way with 17 points. But it's hard to talk about this basketball game without talking about LSU's performance from the three-point line. 13 made threes. That's a season high. 43% from behind the arc for LSU. And you see what kind of offense they can be when they are hot shooting. Obviously, it just has not been consistent enough. But it was really from jump that LSU was able to just control this game. South Carolina scored the first bucket to take a 2-0 lead, and then LSU would go on a 10-2 run. I mean, they'd score 10 of the next 12 points in the ball game. When you look at the under 12, LSU's up 14-11. You come out of that under 12 media timeout, 15-4 run, and included in that was a 10-0 run to kind of kick it off, and it got you to a 31-18 margin, and LSU really never looked back. 41-27 at the break, so a 14-point lead. They knocked down 6 of their 13 threes in the first half, shot 57%. They forced 9 turnovers, 5 blocks in the first half. They were dominant. They beat down a bad basketball team. Like, for all the struggles that LSU has had and as bad as they have looked at times this year, South Carolina is a really bad basketball team. And the onslaught really just continued in the second half. After South Carolina got it down to single digits, LSU went on another run. South Carolina, another run to make it single digits. And then LSU, 8-0 run sparked by 2 3-pointers by, guess who? Cam Carter. Got it to 59-42. And then LSU would go on to lead by as many as 21. And at that point, the game was done. South Carolina made one little final mini run, final mini push down the stretch. But ultimately, again, as we said, 81-67, your final score. Tigers get a much-needed win. And again, it's not going to change the fortune of this season. But for a team that's been through as much adversity as they have been, it's nice to see them get back-to-back wins. It's nice to see them sticking together, still fighting, staying the course, all the cliches terms you want to use. It's nice to see them do that and be rewarded with the impressive comeback win on the road at Oklahoma, and then get to come home, face a bad team against South Carolina, and drub them on your home floor. Look, it's going to be tough down the stretch here now. You get your final 5 games coming up, and that begins with a game on Saturday against number 2 Florida, and that's not going to go well for LSU. But it'll be very interesting to see how they come out now with a little bit of momentum on their home floor against a really, really good team. Again, I'm not expecting that to go well, but it will be interesting to see. A couple more notes from the ball game. I thought something that was absolutely huge for LSU as well was the performance at the free throw line. They did not get there very often on Tuesday night. They only attempted 7 free throws in the game, but they made 6 of them. And that's 86%. And LSU, for the longest time throughout the majority of this season, was the best free throw shooting team in the SEC. And over the course of the last few weeks, they just hadn't been knocking them down at as high of a clip as previously. So to see them do that a night ago, even though it was only 7 attempts, to make 85%, that was a welcome sign. The only having 10 turnovers. So against Oklahoma, you only had 9. Against South Carolina, you only had 10. That's big. And again, those aren't top-end teams. I get it. South Carolina's 0-13 in the league. Oklahoma's a 3-win team when you played them in conference. But for a team that has just struggled as mightily as LSU, you'll take any positive you can at this point in the season, and those two things are very, very positive. So, sharing of the ball, also very good for LSU. 19 assists on 31 made baskets a night ago. So that's a nice clip that you'll take every time. That points to good spacing, things of that nature, being able to move the ball. So overall, that was a really awesome night and a really awesome win for LSU, and they got 2 in a row. That's the first time that they have won 2 straight since the end of pre-conference, when they beat UNO and Mississippi Valley back-to-back. It's been a long road. It's been a tough road. But congratulations to them knocking off South Carolina. We'll see if by the slightest chance it turns into any momentum for this team down the stretch. All right, lastly, LSU baseball. They run Rule Southern on Tuesday afternoon at the box, 13-1. It was never really in doubt. You saw Connor Ware get the start, make his LSU debut. He goes 3 innings, shutout ball. Didn't have the best command that we've seen him have in the past, just in scrimmages and things of that nature leading up to the season, but was still efficient and was still able to get around that. I mean, even in the 3 innings, again, worked some deep counts, but only 1 walk, and he only faced 1 over the minimum. But I believe it was 40 pitches, 21 strikes. So, again, he had control, just not the best command, but a very solid debut, and he's going to have a great season here at LSU. Not really worried about Connor Ware. You really saw predominantly fastball, curveball from him a day ago, so he's got more in the tank, and you'll just continue to see that evolve. In the bottom of the first, LSU was able to jump out to a 2-0 lead. You had Stanfield swinging bunt. He reaches second on a throwing error by the catcher. Derek Curiel promptly singles him home. Curiel would end up scoring on a balk later in the inning to give LSU the 2-0 lead. They'd add another one in the third to make it 3-0. In the fourth inning, LSU blew the game open with an 8 spot. It was highlighted by a 2 RBI single by Danny Dickinson, now giving him 9 RBI on the year, and then a 3-run blast, bomb, just missile by Ethan Fry, his first career home run at LSU. I mean, he absolutely demolished this thing. 106 miles per hour off the bat, 382 to left. It was an awesome moment. That was the 3-run shot that blew it open. LSU would go into that inning, up 3-0, leave that inning, up 11-0, an 8 spot, and the game was pretty much academic from there. The other thing to really note was Zach Cohen making his LSU debut. Thought he was fantastic. I mean, it was who he is. He pitched 3 innings, 9 outs, so he had 3 Ks, 3 ground outs, 3 flyouts. Perfect out distribution from him. Fastball, the 89-91, all over the zone with his secondary stuff as well. I mean, I have just very much enjoyed comping him to Eric Walker. Their stuff and metrics on the stuff, similar. Build, similar. Righty. Guy you're going to have to play great defense behind, and LSU did that a day ago, and Cohen responded by, doing what he does, pounding the strike zone and being great. So if it was 45 pitches for him, 31 strikes to illustrate how Zach Cohen's day went. And then Cade Woods closed it out for LSU, and he looked really good. The ball looked phenomenal coming out of his hand. The slider was crisp. The fastball was up to 94, 95. That's a guy a lot of people wanted to see more of a season ago, and performance and things of that nature just didn't dictate more innings for him, unfortunately. But with a performance like that, you could end up seeing more Cade Woods as the season goes. Wait to see what a role like that could be, because as we know, LSU has a lot of arms. Moving on to Wednesday night, they traveled down to Thibodaux, faced Nicholls at 6:30 first pitch. I would expect Gavin Guidry to get the start in that ball game. He has not been on the mound yet for LSU. The thing I'm most intrigued about in watching Guidry, whenever he pitches, I don't really care about the role at this point in the season, is the fastball velo. I've heard it's up to 93, 94 pretty consistently now, which is huge to go along with that hammer slider. We know what Guidry is. But if he's up to 93, 94 consistently, that's big for LSU this year, but that's also big for his draft stock here in a money year, where, I mean, that makes you think, okay, you got a shot potentially here at the next level as a pitcher. Remember, Guidry came as a two-way guy. I would expect to probably see Chandler Dorsey at some point tonight on the mound against Nicholls, and then also some guys that you saw over the weekend make a return. I think Maverick Rizzi's a great candidate for that. A lot of the freshmen I would really hope to see in that role on the road for the first time for LSU. So Rizzi, definitely a candidate for that. Kason Evans, Cooper Williams, guys like that. I really hope that we get a chance to see given the environment. And then that's the last thing. Love that LSU's going on the road. You're going to go play in someone else's park. You're going to ride a bus. You're going to take a trip. You're going to be uncomfortable for the first time in a while. And that's important. And factor in that Nicholls is the best team up to this point in the season that you will have seen. I like that combination. And you'll get another great test when you go on the road for a week, heading up to Arlington and Frisco for a full week. And that'll happen in 2 weeks. So, look, it'll be interesting to see how LSU responds. They've been pretty damn dominant so far in the first 4 games. It's going to be cold down in Thibodaux tonight. Could lend to lower scoring. So you could get some really good tests for that LSU pitching staff, which is something that I'm really interested to see. That's where my main focus will be, watching LSU Nicholls on Wednesday night, is with the pitching staff. We'll have a full recap for you here on LSU Daily and on Musso at the Box. Immediate reaction to the game, live stream on Musso at the Box. So make sure to tune in for that. That does it here for LSU Daily on Wednesday. Appreciate everybody being here. Subscribe, share, follow on social media, and be here next time for more on LSU Daily.